AI psychosis is quickly becoming a huge problem. At the end of last year, OpenAI reported that about 560,000 of its users showed serious problems surrounding psychosis or mania in their chats with the platform. As AI keeps growing and the amount of people using AI keeps going up, we can also assume that that number, that 560,000, will keep going up. And take into account as well that ChatGPT is made for asking questions specifically. There are also platforms like Replica and Character AI specifically tailored to creating a bond with you. These platforms, on which the explicit goal is to create a friendship or even a relationship with the AI, are being downloaded tens of millions of times. Clearly, we're developing unhealthy bonds with artificial intelligence on a massive scale, and as we see in the news regularly, the results of that are already terrifying. There are people that committed suicide after having long chats with AI that also encouraged them to do this, and other people are only talking to their AI companion at this point because it's the only place they feel heard, and because the AI sometimes even sends them spicy pictures. And there's others even who believe that through their chat with, for example, ChatGPT or Claude, they have found a path to God that had never been found before, or even that they themselves or the AI they're talking to is in reality a deity. But why? I mean, it's clear that it's very nice to have a conversation with an entity that just confirms whatever you want it to say, but at the same time, there must be another reason or multiple reasons why we're so incredibly vulnerable to this right now. Well, you can only fill a hole if there's already a hole in place, and that is confirmed by the fact that people that experience a lot of loneliness are way more vulnerable of falling into the AI psychosis trap. This is strengthened by the enormous amount of depression that people are experiencing. But when it comes to loneliness, we're even speaking of a loneliness epidemic in the media. So clearly something is going on that strengthens our predisposition towards becoming attached to these AIs. Well, first of all, let's kick in an open door. Social media has had a tremendous negative effect on the mental health of everybody, but specifically that of adolescents. When social media was introduced, depression and anxiety rates in this group of people shot up incredibly quickly, and at the same time the amount of play they were getting with other children was going down. On the one hand, the algorithm was socially isolating us, and that made it even easier on the other hand for it to pull us in further and further. And at the same time, these platforms made it impossible for us to critically think by cutting up our attention span, but also by feeding us more and more information that we already agreed with. We were thrown into algorithmic bubbles, which made sure that we always felt safe on these social media platforms, but that we never saw another opinion. Only a comfortable surrounding, no disagreements, and to be fair, in a sense that makes us weak. It makes us incapable of formulating our own arguments and looking at other arguments as legitimate. At the same time, the ability to handle this confrontation is one of the most important things for young people to develop. Jonathan Haidt calls this skill anti-fragility. We basically get stronger when we are exposed to risks, stress, and challenges. In a sense, it seems that Nietzsche was right after all, at least with this quote. However, if we don't have that confrontation, we become fragile and unable to deal with the rough edges of the world. So, social media loneliness epidemic, we are becoming more fragile, but at the same time, we're also being bombarded with more and more insecurity. Job insecurity, global crises, and a 24-hour news cycle that tells us that we should be scared of the future all the time. If we are constantly being bombarded by the worst that the world has to offer, and we don't have these stable friendships anymore that we used to have in the past, there is only one actual way we can move: back to the internet, social media, but more and more artificial intelligence. This is how artificial intelligence then lures us in, because it tells us exactly what we want to hear. It tells us that we're right in our feelings and our thoughts, but it never really challenges us. And because it's beautiful to have this safe haven in life, we move towards the AI more and more. We tell it more and more of our secrets, and at some point we almost find ourselves merged with the artificial intelligence that we're talking to. In some sense, it's almost like you're talking to a reflection of yourself. But anyway, AI in this sense is just a next step in us being isolated from the rest of the physical world. And it also strengthens itself, because as we're moving towards these AI platforms, the outside world becomes more and more scary, and it seems like everything is getting worse and worse. So since social media and especially AI, we seem to have fallen into this vicious circle, this positive feedback loop that pulls us in more and more. It's in a sense like an addiction. So how do we actually combat this? Well, I think it's largely by actually looking at the term anti-fragility again. Dear viewers, we need to touch grass. We need to go outside and face the scary actual real world, and maybe even talk to some people and make some friendships along the way. We need to show fragility, and we need to get hurt sometimes, because being hurt is how we learn and how we grow in life. That is how we become responsible adults, because other people challenge us if we're drifting away or if we have a wacky opinion in a way that artificial intelligence would not. And because life is probably only worth living if we actually experience meaning, and for that we need to show ourselves, we need to get out there. Society does not exist if there are only individuals, and we are not made to be consumers, we are made to experience meaning in life. And contributing to a greater whole makes us feel worthy and meaningful, and that only really happens in the interpersonal realm. Only by putting ourselves out there can we create a meaningful life in which we all have a place in the world. Thanks for watching. If you have any other thoughts on this, you disagree or agree with me, please leave them in the comments. I would love to hear it. And please leave me a like and subscribe if you're still here anyway. Ciao!